Alright, hello, this is Addison from the Agency of Narrative Intrigue and Mystery. This is going to be one of the quick start videos for Eureka Investigative Urban Fantasy. It is probably going to be the first one you watch, but it's not the first one I recorded. This video is using the July 11th version of the Eureka rulebook. It is still in beta. It's fully playable, as you probably know if you're watching this video to get ready to play it. But not all the art and stuff like that is in the rulebook yet. This is for like if you're intimidated by the page count. It's about 700 pages in the PDF, but not all of that is rules text that you have to like memorize. Huge amounts of it are like lists and roll tables and like character options and abilities, stuff like that. Like ultimately, to even get like a full understanding of the game, you don't need to read 700 pages. You only need to read like 200 pages. You should read at least those 200 pages. Even though I am making a quick start video, you should read those 200 pages to get a full understanding of the rules. Because as a player, having a full understanding of the rules means that you have more agency in what goes on in the game and better understanding of what's happening, and will be able to have your character do cool things because the rules are so the characters can do stuff. The better you understand the rules, the better and more the more successful your investigator and the whole party is going to probably be in the game, and the smoother everything will run at the table, because the more people at the table know the rules, the less often you have to look stuff up in the rule book. And the rules were written to be used. We expect you to use the rules, otherwise we wouldn't have written them. And they need to be followed for them to all work together like they're supposed to. The rules are there to make the game better and more enjoyable and lead to more surprising and engaging outcomes than just like free-form role-playing with no rules would have ever given you. But this is a quick start video, so to give you the absolute most bare minimum information, which will help you at the table, it'll help you when you watch the other quick start videos, and it'll help you understand what you're reading when you read the rulebook. I'm just going to go through the quick term section of the rules. Eureka is a very interwoven text. The rules are meant to fit together and be used together. So we put this little section at the very beginning that just like gives you really small snippets of important keywords and rules right at the beginning so that you'll already know them when stuff starts mentioning them. We have this picture of somebody holding a lighter to represent that you'll be lost in the dark without reading the rules and without understanding the terminology used in the rules. Investigators, the characters narrated by the players that explore the world and try to solve the mystery, these are called investigators. A lot of other RPGs call them player characters or PCs. I use the term PCs a lot, both just normally and when I'm doing these quick start videos, so get used to that. Next is narrator. The narrator is the player who sets up the mystery and directs the world that reacts to the investigator's actions. Most other tabletop RPGs call this the game master or dungeon master if it's like Dungeons and Dragons. A non-player character or an NPC is any character that is not an investigator. The actions of these characters are directed and described by the narrator or the game master. Skills. Skills represent proficiencies or developed talents like charm, visual calculus, stealth, driving, stuff like that. They are like the primary way that investigators learn more about the mystery and overcome challenges. Every investigator has the same set of skills to draw from, but each investigator has their own mix of what skills they're good at and what skills they're not good at, as well as like unique ways to use these skills in some cases. There are also extra skills that not every investigator has, but we'll get to that in the character creation quick start video. So a skill check, also referred to as a skill roll, a check, roll, whatever, is what happens when the outcome of a character's actions is uncertain, and the player or narrator rolls the dice to see if the character succeeds at that action. Rolls are almost always made with 2 6-sided dice, also known as 2d6. All rolls have a modifier, even if that modifier is +0, and a check can have 3 different results: a full success, a partial success, or a failure. You will probably be very familiar with this if you have played any Powered by the Apocalypse game or Apocalypse World itself. It is similar, but you should still pay attention to this because it is not exactly the same. This is not a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and the way that we use the full success, partial success, and failure type stuff in the Eureka rulebook is very different. So, first of all, a modifier. A modifier is a number added to or subtracted from the result of a dice roll to alter the final result. A positive modifier may also be called a bonus, and a negative modifier may be called a penalty. Usually a modifier will come from a character's rating in a skill or from a trait. Positive modifiers can be base modifiers or contextual modifiers, which is explained in detail in the How to Make a Roll section. And while contextual modifiers are called contextual modifiers, they are not just given arbitrarily by the narrator or game master. Contextual modifiers, they only appear in specific situations, which are defined by the rulebook. So there are 3 main results that a 2d6 skill check can have, or a 2d6 roll can have. A result of 10 or higher on the roll is a full success. This means the character succeeds in their course of action without any negative consequences, or at least not any negative consequences immediately resulting from them failing to do the action. If an investigator punches somebody in the face with a full success, they're not free of the consequences of punching somebody in the face. The punch itself will be successful and they will hit that character in the face. The target will not be able to dodge, block, or immediately counter the attack. They still just successfully punch somebody in the face, and that could have some pretty serious consequences. A partial success is a 7, 8, or 9 on the roll. The character succeeds in their course of action, but with some negative consequence or to a lower degree, so they don't succeed as good as they would have. And a failure is a 6 or below on the roll. The character fails to accomplish their intended course of action and possibly suffers some negative consequence as well. These consequences and stuff will always result from the character's action directly. It won't just be random misfortune that befalls them because they failed a dice roll. Eureka. The game is named Eureka, and Eureka points are the namesake of the game, so it plays a pretty big part. So an investigator collects investigation points for every investigative roll that they make, and they get more points when they fail rolls than when they succeed rolls. When an investigator saves up enough investigation points, they get a Eureka point, also known as a Eureka, which can be used to dramatically tip the odds in their favor. It allows a retroactive full success on a previously failed investigative roll, or a 3d6 drop the lowest die for a non-investigative roll. So an investigative roll is any roll that aims to directly uncover some piece of information that puts the investigators closer to solving the mystery. And these rolls give investigation points. A non-investigative roll is any roll that does not aim to directly uncover some piece of information that puts the investigator closer to solving the mystery. And these rolls do not give investigation points. So trying to read the scratched out serial number of a gun found at the crime scene, that would count as an investigative roll. Using that same gun to shoot somebody would be a non-investigative roll. Characters have skills. You'll get to that in later on. There is no investigation skill in Eureka. All the skills can be used for investigative roles. Composure is an investigator's ability to stay cool under pressure, or like push through fatigue or hunger. When an investigator faces like fear or danger, they might make a composure roll, and that will determine if they lose any composure or not. The modifier on this 2d6 composure roll is determined by an aspect unique to each investigator, which is their tiers of fear chart, which is, I won't cover that in this video. The lower composure goes, obviously the more stressed the investigator is becoming, and their chances of success in skill rolls also go down, because, to put it in really simple terms, their bonus modifiers cannot normally be higher than their current composure level. If they have only 2 composure left, they're limited to +2s and +1s, and only below that. They won't be able to add any +3s to their skill rolls. There are exceptions to that. Contextual modifiers are not affected by composure, and that's why you need to know the difference between base and contextual modifiers. But that's the gist of composure. A point of interest is anything relevant to the investigation, really. A murder weapon on the ground could be a point of interest, some footprints could be a point of interest, a desk that might contain clues, some scratches on a wall, etc. Absolutely anything that the investigators could examine to learn more information or draw conclusions from is a point of interest, even if it ultimately turns out to be unrelated to the case. Even an NPC could be a point of interest, and things that NPCs say could be points of interest, if it's like relevant information and stuff like that. Truth. So a investigator's truth is like one or more personality quirks that are like core to the investigator, but are not a trait. It has to be something that will like spur them to action in a certain way, for better or for worse, or like could get them into trouble, make them mouth off, make them say something. You'll see when you get to the full description of truth in the character creation video, but up to once per scene, when an investigator acts in a way that is aligned with their truth, they gain a +1 contextual modifier to their next 5 rolls. A scene is anytime the investigators like visit a particular location and do something there. When the investigators show up to a witness's house, ask a few questions, and then leave, that is a single scene. When the investigators are traveling to or from a location, that is a single scene, even though no descriptions need to be made or dialogue needs to be exchanged during the travel. When the investigators sit down to eat and they discuss their recent findings, that is a single scene. Combat, chases, and other dangerous situations happen within scenes and are not themselves new scenes. A scene can be as short as a couple sentences of description, or as long as like the entire session. Traits. Traits are building blocks that make up an investigator's personality, features, and or like role. Each investigator has at least 3 traits and a maximum of 6 traits. They can drastically change how the player experiences the game and what that investigator can do. Even though most traits only make up certain elements of personality, personality is gameplay. Characterization is gameplay in Eureka, and depending on the character's personality as made by traits, they have different strengths, weaknesses, and abilities. Some traits are not really personality traits, but more like abilities. Some of them are both. You'll see when you get to traits and character creation. They're very cool. Lastly, I'm going to really quickly cover approaching this game. So like, there's many ways to play RPGs. Every RPG, however, has a way that it specifically wants to be played, that it was written with the rules the way they were intended to be played and approached. Not every RPG makes these explicitly clear, but Eureka does make it explicitly clear how this game is supposed to be played. The explanations of how this game is supposed to be played are also part of the rules themselves. They're not suggestions, they're rules. And if you don't follow those rules, a lot of other rules in the game won't work quite properly. And one of those rules is players are not their characters. the player is at the table, the investigator or player character or PC is in the world of the game. And I'll cover this more in another video, but when you're referring to the player, you say the player's name. When you're referring to something that's happening to the character, or something the character and the investigator's doing, you say the investigator's name. And the actions of the investigator are not the actions of the player. That is a separate person. It is not a role, persona, alternate identity, or puppet, or bodysuit, or anything like that that the player takes on. Wholly separate character. And it's a bit more like a character in a novel, where what your own investigator does might often end up surprising even you. It might end up disgusting even you. And Eureka will pretty often go to some pretty intense places. And you should not be worried about someone getting onto your case for something that your character has done, because otherwise the game won't work right. And it won't be the experience that we wrote this rulebook to present and convey and result in. And part of that I just talked about is using third-person verbiage. So third-person verbiage means using third-person pronouns and grammar and point of view when describing the actions of any character. It's not I shoot my gun at the bad guy, it's the investigator or investigator's name, like Yvette or Bob or Mike shoots his or her gun at the bad guy or there. It's not it's your turn or you take 4 damage, it's the investigator's turn and the investigator takes 4 damage. It's not we solve the mystery, it's they solve the mystery. It's not we are going to go check out the old abandoned amusement park, it's they are going to go check out the old abandoned amusement park. That is very important to how Eureka works and the kind of experiences that it is meant to result in. Thank you for watching this. Please go on to watch the other quick start videos and or read the rulebook. And if you haven't already, download our game. You can get it on itch.io. Just Google Eureka Investigative Urban Fantasy, you'll find it. It is free. Payment is optional. We'd like it if you paid us, but it's not absolutely necessary. It does help us pay our bills and keep making games though, so please do. We also have Patreon, where for a $5 subscription on Patreon you can get more regular updates as we continue to work on and finish the game, as well as our other games and stuff like that, monthly at the Agency of Narrative Intrigue and Mystery Patreon, and play Eureka. And if you can get in contact with us through the multiple ways we can get in contact with us, talk about Eureka, tell us about Eureka, tell us about your experiences playing Eureka, because we want to know, and we want this game to be played. And sharing Eureka with your friends and liking the video will also help. Bye.